Now the minor festivals or Sabbaths are the solar celebrations, and as non-initiates may be present at major Sabbaths, all initiations may take place at them, for non-initiates are allowed at the minor Sabbaths, and these are Yule, the winter solstice, December the 22nd, to call back the sun or the god for another year, the spring equinox on the 21st of March, to celebrate the transition of the god from his death aspect to the light aspect, the summer solstice on the 22nd of June, to celebrate the sun at his height, the autumn equinox on September the 21st, to celebrate the transition of the god from his light aspect to his death aspect. Now the ordinary meetings, or esbats, are lunar celebrations and take place monthly when the moon is full, and any craft meeting consists of the following parts, and usually in this order: the casting and purification of the magic circle, initiations, if there are any to be done, an act of worship, works of magic, if there are any to be done, the reading of the charge, the goddess's words to her children, the consecration of new working tools, if there are any to be done, the blessing of the food and the wine, the feast for the witches who are in the first degree. They who are of the inverted triangle may sit by the high priestess or high priest for instruction from the Book of Shadows, and last of all, the closing of a circle. Now the ethics of the Wicca state that it would not seem possible for any part of the universe created by a creator to be evil. The concept of good and evil would appear to be invalid among witches. Furthermore, the laws of the physical level of the universe are immutable, and we have no reason to suppose otherwise of the laws of the Creator. And sin, the breaking of these laws, is therefore impossible. This I disagree with, but is my conclusion. And the concept, together with the corollary of judgment, seems to be an attempt to impose upon the Creator all the peculiar imperfections of human law. And that is where I disagree. And this is where I disagree. But man, having free will, is able either to act in knowledge of or in conformity with these laws, or knowing or unknowing. Sounds like the laws of England. If they are unknowing or knowing, they disregard them. In either case, the operation of law brings to him and to others the result of his action, or karma. Sow thistles, you may not reap roses. And this process or action may spun many, many lies. Thus the true dichotomy is that of wisdom and unwisdom. And we've arrived at the word witch. And this is derived from almost a phantom word, an Anglo-Saxon word, Wicca, which has many meanings. But for us, it means having an awareness of the knowledge of the way in which the universe works, and the way and the ability and the will to act in conformity with this knowledge. The universe operates by virtue of the harmony between its parts, and hence the first and only injunction on ethics given by the craft is, and is harm none, do what you will. This injunction, which should be given in the first degree initiation, covers so much that it is not possible to make further generalities. Beyond this, the use of one's own will with wisdom is so dependent on one's peculiar abilities and the qualities of the particular situation encountered that no man or woman is competent to direct another. So it appears to me also to be pointless as a teacher. And yet, I have to give out this generality. And the craft, as a religion, is in general much more permissive, but it places upon the individual, or it should, the responsibility of acting wisely, according to his lights, and that of enlarging his wisdom to the best of his ability. In the witch work, or the magical work of the Wicca, the works of magic performed by the craft arise from the utilization of a power within oneself. The goddess tells you this: if you cannot find it within yourself, you will never find it without. So from the point of view of the craft, this is the power of the Creator within. But from the point of view of modern parapsychology, thoughts, it is psi. The action as far as the mind is concerned takes place predominantly in the subconscious levels, and the subconscious understands pictures more easily than words. There are 4 factors necessary for such work as this, as they all tend to create a mental state in which it can become possible. First, as a strong desire, and desire is the basis of all action, and is needed to an even greater extent for actions of this kind. If you hear strange rustlings, it's because it's so cold in here. I'm wearing my coat, and my fabrics are rubbing against fabrics, and I've got a very bad cold. Alright, back to earth again. We'll consider death spells. It is possible, but as much hatred or anger must be raised as would be needed, as one would desire to kill with one's own bare hands, or with the athame itself. Second is the creation of hypnotic or semi-trance states, and it is necessary to lower some of the barriers between the unconscious, which acts, and the conscious, which directs. And within the magic circle, a nice balance of this must be preserved, as there is no point to it at all if consciousness is lost without a teacher present. Next is working with intent, and this requires all the concentration of the attention being used where such as the art of spells or wax images may be usefully employed as a focus. They are more often used for healing than for harmful work. Another way is a temporary or permanent suspension of disbelief. And disbelief is an important limiting factor, not present to anything like the same extent in primitive societies. For this reason, the craft work today is normally directed toward the improbable rather than the so-called impossible. In this connection, it is the disbelief of the guts that counts, not that of the head. I'm cursing very nicely and very politely one of my witches who's absolutely fucked up a lot of the work around me, and I'm struggling with a very bad recording machine, and even he can get angry. But anyway, apart from that, I'm just letting you know that I'm human. I also live a lot with my guts. And sometimes I think to myself, oh Christ, Alex, what's wrong with your head? And because witches are what they are, they always say we can work for anybody, whether we're going to be successful or not. So more often than not it works. We have accepted the improbable rather than the impossible. And all the techniques are written down in the Book of Shadows and used in the craft magical are directed toward one or more of these ends, and so serve as a crutch, which is mentioned in the ritual of how to gain the sight. That you have to point certain things out to the children of the Wicca before they can see them. No, the average person can't see wood for trees, so if you want somebody to be an initiate, do you expect them to be seen or to be able to see? You have to take the scales away from their eyes, get rid of the props. And until such times as we can get the scales off them, we use all sorts of different ways and means, or any end, as a crutch for them, until the development of their mind and the clear sight coming to them renders everything unnecessary. I save all my weapons, not that I use them personally for myself to cast the magic circle. I keep them for the very, very special initiates, whether male or female. If I see the rites, then my fatherhood, the children I have, my homosexual rights, enter in or use any means to get to the feet of the goddess herself. And so my weapons are only kept for initiation. And it is written in the Book of Shadows that water purifies the body and the scourge purifies the soul. I'm as hard with myself as I am with those few true initiates. And I use sex magic with males. I ran parallel, unknowingly, having met him on one occasion with Aleister Crowley. I discovered the Kundalini. It's a myth, it's a legend. It is she who sleeps beneath the kanda to give wisdom to the magi and magic to fools. It's a dogmatic statement. It's she who sleeps. So who would touch her if I work my homosexual magic? The degrees and initiations are divided into 4 levels, and 3 initiations stand between them. First, the non-initiates. There has in the past been primary concern with the agricultural aspect of the craft. And therefore the non-initiates attend the nature Sabbaths or Esbats, entering the circle of the feast at the end, and then the first degree initiation of the inverted triangle is the adoption of a lost child of the hidden Wicca from past lives, the initiate, into the family, because he or she has come home to the Coven, or to the Covenstead, or to the Covendom. And in this first degree, it involves an oath of mutual assistance and secrecy over certain details of craft. It also includes a certain amount of instruction. And the first degree initiates are instructed by the high priestess in the case of men, and from the high priest in the case of women. Always I have a personal opinion about my work. In my contact with many people, I will say that what I have just said applies more to the Gardnerian craft than to the Alexandrian craft, where more often than not, high priestesses are mothers with children. And with these children it is not always possible for them to spend the time teaching, so we generally tend to get in our covens, and that is, if it is a good coven, a high priest and a high priestess and a teacher who can spend time with both male and female initiates. And these first degree initiates attend all the meetings inside the circle, except when second or third degree initiations take place. And if they are really true and sincere and they want to work, we can give them work. And in this work, they should undergo various mental training exercises, which really should have commenced when the goddess gave her decree that she would accept them for initiation. Before I began to get all of my publicity, somebody had heard of a telltale little whisper that I was a witch. It's very difficult to be able to deal with people who thought witches were legends and fairy stories. But when somebody saw through the facade that I was, and saw the real me, you say, "Can I be a witch?" But I couldn't grant permission. Sometimes I wanted to give it immediately if I liked the person, but I couldn't grant it, whether I liked the person or not. And so I used to put them off, and I'd say, "I'll have to receive the permission of the goddess." And they would say to me, "Well, how can you get that?" All I could say was, "I don't know." But I'll be able to tell you, and I will know when I get it. And I did know when I got it. And when I felt that she was giving to me her degree. I would accept them from an initiation in my coven. But the first task that I used to give to them was to make their own set of ritual instruments, doing as much of the work as possible with their own hands, so that something of themselves would be present in the finished article. Even if they weren't successful and it wasn't very beautiful, they would have worked at it, and their sweat would have been on it. Something of themselves on it. The first degree of initiation is the initiation of the inverted triangle. The second degree initiation is that of the inverted pentagram, and this includes several tests to see that the lessons of the first have been well learned of our service to the craft and its gods, and the acting out of the legend of the goddess. And second degree initiates, who together with the high priest and the high priestess are known as the elders, and they hold authority, since all true authority rests on service, just as a judge has the true authority of justice to precisely the extent to which he serves justice. The elders are organized in working pairs. And they have to be so close in this work. And this is very strongly conducive to affection. But the craft considers it somewhat out of the natural way to deliberately set up situations tending to artificial, homosexual or lesbian relationships. In the Book of Shadows it says always male and female. But from a fertility point of view and my studies of the craft, I believe that homosexual or lesbian relationships can be just as fertile from a spiritual point of view. And one should not condemn the beliefs and practices of other initiates if all that they are doing is toward the good and furthering of the craft. I suppose that I can say this sarcastically or cynically, but the Wicca makes exceptions to this rule, being that mother and daughter, or father and son, may work together as a natural channel. They already exist in these cases to take the affection form. I don't take too much out of this personally, because the greatest religion in the world, which is still extant today, the worship of the great Isis, is purely incestuous. In many ways it could be a cover-up for a father having an incestuous relationship or homosexual relationship, or vice versa. And so I allow so-called gay people or homosexuals to work with me. But the ideal relationship of a fertility craft is working pairs. That is, of the head and the heart, for they are perfectly complementary and should be brought to a state of balance. But instruction does not end with the second degree, while each elder finds within him or herself the position of a research student to develop their own understanding of reality and to share it with others. The third degree initiation is the upright pentagram with an upright triangle above it, and it is held in the presence of all the elders and consists of the god and goddess to manifest through a particular working pair, so that this pair become high priestess and high priest to represent the goddess and the god in that coven. The high priest and high priestess preside at all meetings, though in their absence any working pair of elders may stand in for them. But as the craft is matriarchal, the role of the high priestess is dominant. But they do try to share equally in the work of teaching, and they have to maintain contact with other covens. That is, in our day and age, the law says we may not know where the other covens are, nor may we know the names of the people. The times are changing, and so we know where the covens are. But the craft is organised into covens according to environment. These are groups of between 4 and 20 initiates. The lower limit is set by the fact that it takes 4 elders to perform a second degree initiation properly. The generally accepted coven holds 13 people, which fits in allegorically with the almost 13 moons of the year. Or could it be the fact that on Olympia there were 12 gods ruling, and Hester, who worked at the hearth fire, gave up her seat when Jupiter brought Ganymede, his lover, his homosexual lover, to heaven to drink from his cup. And so, because she was always at the hearth cooking, she gave up her throne. And so that there were 13 gods in heaven, according to the Greeks. That was 12 gods, but a demigod. Putting that aside, the high priest and the high priestess, and one of the working pair of elders, represents the minimum for a fully supporting coven. 13 is more flexible, being set by the largest number of people who can work easily in the size of circle used, which in turn is set by the space available at the meeting. In past times, when we worshipped in the greatest temples, when the overall organisation of the craft had its public and reputable existence, and by reputable existence, I say this because the religions of old are always followed by the heretics of the new, and they're always put down by the heretics of the new. So witches believe that the temples of Egypt, the great pyramids of the Aztecs, our stone circles here, and even our own temples, and that we have, and did have, a very public and very reputable existence. And it seems very far away, like the dream time, with all the wars and troubles in the world today. But it is possible that these wonderful times will come back for us. But during the persecution time, the Covens deliberately lost touch with each other, so that the discovery of one would not lead to the discovery of another, or its persecution. So today, each coven is totally independent, and guards that independence, very jealously sometimes. The times are changing, and subject to this consideration, contact for the past 20 years has steadily been increased. This probably will be a public downfall, apparently, for the craft. Because great libraries have been built up, and not all things can be destroyed. And there are many, many books and many, many ways of interpreting the ritual. And today I believe that the craft lacks the discipline that I had. And I will say this, that I, and many more like me, who are older than younger people, would have taught in a very organised and very tough sort of way. And we jealously guard our rights, and believe that we too are right. The ritual training and teaching techniques of the craft are held in several books, which each elder copies out for his or her own as soon as possible after the second degree. There are the Book of Law, the Book of Shadows, the Book of Spells, and the Book of Veils and the Priestess. Many people want to know what the Book of Veils and the Priestess is. Be a very thin book at the present time, because it is all the possessions of the Coven, all its pieces and all its robes, all its properties, the money, everything it has collected. And the Book of Shadows contains the guiding principles of the craft. but the practice of the Coven varies considerably in detail and emphasis from Coven to Coven. All executive authority in the Coven rests with the Council of Elders, to which all the elders belong. It lies in their hands who shall or shall not be accepted for any initiation, to rule on any changes that might be made to craft practice or teaching in that Coven, and to regulate the relationship of that Coven with other Covens and the world at large. And as harmony in the circle is of paramount importance to the work of the craft, all decisions of the Council must be unanimous. Should the elders feel strongly, and this unanimity be impossible, or should the group grow so large that it cannot work comfortably, it is necessary, for the good of the circle, that the Coven splits. In these cases, the elders decide which among them will form the nucleus of which group, and the others are given free choice as to which Coven they will attend. In this way, Covens may multiply, and so the craft will persist. That is the general organisation of the craft. And as I have Mary met, so I will Mary part my hand, my heart, as the goddess decrees, so must it be. Cursed be they who ordain the fruit.